Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and today we're going to have a look at what it's going to take to get the 680 legal on the road. Alright, so over the last 18 months or so, you've watched me sort of build this car into what it is now. But at least in New South Wales here in Australia, there is rules to what you can do and what you can't do. Basically, unless the car is completely standard original as it came from the factory, you need to get an engineer to look at it and can make sure that everything you've done is safe and legal before you can actually get it registered on the road. Lots of people do modify their cars, but it's not necessarily legal. That's probably common everywhere, but the rules that we have to stick to here are quite varied. So what I'm going to go through now, I've had the engineer out. He's done his initial look over the car to check a lot of the things that I've done, and I've got to get him happy that everything I've done is safe. So I'll start going through that list now and just take you through what he said, and we might have a few things we have to change. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the seats. Now, because these are not the factory seats, they need to be meet Australian design rules to be legal on the road. And a lot of you were questioning why I used copy seats in my car, because these are not genuine bride seats. These are actually copies, because the genuine ones are actually not legal, as far as I know, on the road in Australia, because they have not been tested to the Australian design rules, whereas these copy ones have. So these are actually legal, and I've actually got the documentation from the manufacturer to prove that they are and to keep the engineer happy. So the seats are one thing I can tick off. And while I'm here, I actually got him to check my seat belts. As many of you saw, I changed the seat belts. The original seat belts are like a fixed belt. They just, there's no retractor on it. I put the retractor in, I mounted it down on the wheel arch, and he inspected how I mounted it, my backing plate, which was oversized for what was required, and he was happy with all that, so the seat belts are all good to go. There's a few other bits and pieces I have to play with, but before I go too far, I actually sent away to the engine builder and got the correct jets for this car. So before I start moving it around so I can get it on the hoist and do some of the other things I need to do to get it registered and get it legal, I'm going to change over these jets. So let's go through that. So a lot of you probably aren't that familiar with carbies, but for those who aren't, I will take you through roughly what's going on here. So I've just taken the, and thrown a bolt away, taken the cap off of the carby, and that reveals the jets. Now, most Webers are set up relatively similarly. They might have a round cap or something, but it's pretty similar to what these are. You've got these ones with the sort of the hole in it. They are your main jets, and these two other ones, they're your idle jets. So the idle jets work up to about 3,000 RPM or so, and then the main jets take over. So I'll just take them out now so you can have a look and see what's actually going on. And on the top here, this is actually the jet itself. So we take that off, and they're often quite tight. They're quite tight, but that is actually your jet there. And it's got numbers on the side of it which tell you the designation, but basically I'm going to change these all over now to the new ones that I've been given. This is your main jet, so it comprises of a bunch of different parts. So you've got the cap on the end. This is the bit that actually just holds everything down. That screws in, that's just the cap. Underneath the cap at the top of the jet, that is your air corrector. So that has different sizes, so that's something that needs to be changed as well for different things. And then on the top, that is your main jet there. So the main jet is just the actual top little tiny piece. So I'm going to change these over now to some others. I've got some 135M main jets I'm changing and 175A air correctors. So I'm going to change them over. They just slide off and slide in. Sometimes they're a little bit tight. The tight ones I'm using a pair of pliers without any, just completely flat part so it's not going to leave any sort of nasty dents and stuff in it, and just give it a little bit of a wiggle to try and loosen them up. And the last bit, the center of the whole thing, this is the emulsion tube, and there's different sizes of these, and how they vary is depending on how many, how big the holes are, how many holes they have, how much air, etc. they let in. To me, it's all a black art. I have no idea how it works. So I'm going to change them over now and reinstall them in the car. Okay, so now we've had the jets changed in all the carbies. The next thing I need to tackle that is not okay under here, according to the engineer, is see this breather hose here, and it goes down to my oil catch can, which is down here. That is not allowed. Oil catch cans are not legal on Australian roads. What I've got to do is I've got to plumb this breather hose back into one of the air filters. So I'm going to plumb it into the center air filter so that it can actually recirculate any vapors, and that just burns them off in the engine. That's what needs to be done. So I'm going to swap this out. I've got a hose actually off of a wreck that's fuel rated. Obviously this is not oil rated, this is just heater hose, and we'll plumb it into the air filter. Okay, so I've been having a look at these air filters, trying to work out some way that I can actually plumb in this breather back into the air filter. I was trying to do it from behind somewhere, and there's just nowhere I can get a good straight run. It's going to be very difficult to do it. So unfortunately, the only way I've worked out how to do it is actually to put it into the top of the air filter, although that's not a bad thing because it means that if there is any blow by, it's on this side of the filter. Any oil that drips is going to be dripping, it's away from the exhaust, so it's going to just drip down onto the body or onto the ground. It's not going to get burnt on the headers and cause me a fire. So I'm going to now drill through and tap in my fitting into the outside of the cover, and then I can fit my hose and keep the engineers happy. Okay, so my breather now has gone into the air filter. I wish it didn't have to go in there, particularly into the top here. It's sort of, but it's done and it's relatively neat. That's sorted out. I capped off the large breather coming out of the case down below. Basically, from what I've seen, I only need one, and the engineer was happy with me doing that, capping that off just so that I just run the breather as long as I recirculate it. That's all good, and it's he was happy to sign that off. Another thing he picked up is this fuel hose here. It's actually sitting on the this throttle rail, so it could potentially wear through. So I'm going to have to make a new little bracket just to raise this up out of the way a little bit. So that's my next task, is make a little bracket just to get that in the out of the way and into a spot that's going to be acceptable. Well, that is now sitting much better. There's plenty of space. The fuel line's not touching anything. I'm much happier with that. solution. So while we're working with the fuel line, I thought I would move you over to the other side and show you what I'm doing over here. So down here, the fuel line comes in. I'm going to add a fuel pressure regulator into that line so that I get the just the right amount of fuel pressure into these rails. As now I've removed the fuel return, as you might have seen last week, because I have another plan for that fuel return line. So let's get this fuel pressure regulator mounted in. I've just sort of quickly mounted it in here. I'm not very happy with how it is, so I'm going to have to play around with that bracket and get it so that it sits just nicely exactly where I want it, so that it's going to do the job. Okay, I've got the regulator connected up. I've got my pressure gauge here. I want around 3 psi of pressure, so I'm going to just set that up now and just check and see where I am and see if I can adjust the pressure to get it sitting nicely at what we want. Should be good. Well, sitting at 3 psi, that's looking very good. So that was adjusted. It's good as it is out of the box, so I haven't touched it. I'll just leave it at that. I'll plug the end up, take the gauge back out again, and we can move on to something else. So the next thing I have to look at to keep the engineer happy is this roll cage. Now, full roll cages are not legal in road cars in Australia. They don't want any front cage bars at all, because your head could potentially impact it in an accident. And even though it does seem a little bit dubious, this cage here, anything that's anywhere near head height, now I don't see how my head is ever going to hit it, but to keep them happy, we need to pad the top part of this cage, and anything that's sort of nearby that in some freak way I could be thrown out and impact. So I'm going to go through now and put some padding on. I had to get the a specific type of padding. Often you see sort of like a pool noodle that people have chucked over the roll cage, and that would not satisfy him. This is actually a CAMS approved roll cage padding, so it only sort of caps over from one side and it sticks onto the cage. But this is the approved stuff. So I'm going to go through now and just put some padding on this cage, and then hopefully it all keeps it happy, and we can keep the cage in the car. I'm really looking forward to getting this running well, because at the moment the plugs are all foul. They keep fouling up all the time, so it's running on sort of 4 or 5 cylinders, and it can't even get enough go to be able to reverse up and turn the car around. So I'm going to take the spark plugs out, give them a clean, put them back in, and then hopefully I can actually drive it enough to get it in, turn it around and get it up on the hoist. Okay, so now the car is turned around. It works much better with clean spark plugs, but it's still not running well. It needs a lot of tuning. But the next thing you need to look at is the engineer obviously is talking about emissions. Now, this car is a 1971 car, but I have to run to 1978 fuel emission standards because this engine is out of a 1978 Datsun 280ZX. So that means I don't have to run catalytic converters. It's before that came in and was mandatory, but I do have to run a charcoal canister. So this was on all cars from after, I think, sort of 1976 or something like that. I'm not sure on the exact year, but basically I've just pinched this out of a rack. But what this does is it takes the fumes from the fuel tank and sucks them through here with a vacuum line off of the engine. And yeah, so it's just a line to the fuel tank, a line to a vacuum line off the engine, and then it's just got a vent tube as well. Now I'm going to fit this one down in behind the front bar here. I think there's sort of plenty of space. It can be out here, out of the way. And what I'm going to use is I'm actually going to use to get the vacuum all the way to the back of the car from the fuel tank. I'm going to use the fuel return line. As you've seen, I'm no longer running a return on this system, so I'm going to use that return line to take the fumes out of the car, run it through the car, charcoal canister, keep everybody happy, and as some of you mentioned, it may even help cut down on the fuel smell in the car, because that's essentially what the charcoal canister is for, is to get rid of extra fuel vapor, and that is its purpose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start fitting this into the system. So now I have my charcoal canister fitted in behind the front bumper there. I have my lines coming out. One line goes all the way around and it tees into the vacuum line in the back here. So there's the vacuum and the other line goes into the return line for the fuel, which I will now have to go through and set up in the fuel tank in the back of the car. But that will have to wait for another day because I am out of time, which means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, sometimes cheating goes all the way to the top. In the 1986 World Rally Championship, after the deaths of Sergio Cresta and Henri Teuvenon, Pfizer banned the use of side skirts. Despite this ban, Peugeot continued to use side skirts, and the organisers of the San Remo rally reported Peugeot to Pfizer. Interestingly, as the head of Pfizer was Jean-Marie Balestre, a Frenchman, he let it slide. He had a history of giving French teams or French drivers an advantage. Another thing that he let Peugeot slide on was that they did not make the extra 20 cars required to qualify for the homologation of the T16 to be classed as an Evo 3. As such, Peugeot went on to win the 1986 Drivers and Manufacturers titles.
All right, guys, well, today we've got another episode of Mail Time. So let's get straight into it. And the first package we've got is from Beaverton, Oregon. So let's just see what we got. Oh, that's nice. I'm not sure what that is off of, what Z that is off of. Is it a Datsun Z or is it just another random Z? But I like it. And a factory Nissan motor tool bag. Looks like an original old one, but in really good condition. And a 10 mil. 10 mil's always handy. That's going to go straight in with the spanners. That is always a handy thing to have. What else? It looks like we've got a bunch of bits and pieces in here. Okay, let's have a look. Here we go. I bought these for the S30 project I had about 20 years ago, but had to sell off before I completed it. I hope you can use them. I've since been bitten by the Z31 chassis, and it will probably be a long while before I get to own another S30. I've thrown in a kooky S31 emblem for your toolbox. Or if you ever get bitten by the Z31 bug, a potential replacement part, and comprehensive roadside assistant kit for vintage Datsun owners. Okay, so that's what the 10mm is. It's a comprehensive roadside assistant kit. I like it. The whole thing fits nicely in this tool bag that was originally designed for holding the bottle jack hardware on old Datsuns. Best of luck with your Z and any other future projects that you might trailer home. And what else? What he sent me is... He actually sent me replacement, this is factory steering rack mounts for the, or bushes for the car. So thank you very much, Michael. And I know this coincides, I actually talked to Michael, he sent me an email asking if I could use these, and yes, I can. And there was something else that he worked on. So even though he sent me this badge, which is going to go up on the wall, I know that he was also working on something else that he emailed me, and I am very excited to see what is in this box. Now, this is not from Michael, but it kind of is. You'll see what I mean in a minute. All right, so this other box has come in from Brendan at Beavis Motorsport. Beavis Motorsport is, check out Beavis Motorsport on YouTube. He actually builds a Time Attack Mazda MX-5s. He's got a bunch of them. He's got a turbo one with a bunch of cool aero gear, and he's always working on them, and it's a really cool channel. He does a lot of cool stuff, so check out Beavis Motorsport. And he sent me this care package. It looks like he sent me a couple of I don't know, they look like Japanese lollies, which is awesome. And there's a bunch of more lollies that have gone flying. All right, and long sleeve, and a long sleeve Beavis Motorsport shirt. That is awesome. Thank you very much, Brendan. That is cool. Now, what's even cooler of him is because I actually reached out to him because watching his channel, I watch it quite regularly, and I knew he had a 3D printer. And Michael from earlier actually designed up for me a Datsun 680G logo in the original style, designed off of the original badges. And I got Brendan to, I asked him very kindly if he would be able to print them out for me, and he's done that. And I've got a bunch of these 680G logos, which I can now, I've just got to tidy up the edges of them. They've got a bit of extra stuff on here just to make them easier to print. I'm going to tidy them up and paint them and replace the dodgy stickers that I've got on the car with these awesome logos. I am so happy with how good these look. So a massive shout out to Brendan at Beavis Motorsport. Check out his channel. I'll put a link in the description. And a big thank you to Michael for actually designing these and sending it through. That is absolutely awesome, and I'm loving these things. They look awesome. And last but not least, this is something sent to me from me. What I have in here is the brand new Z merch. So if you check on the link in the description now, you can go to our store. I've got these new awesome Z mugs. My mate Louis designed these again, like he's designed a lot of the merch we have. He's done an awesome job on it. It's got the 680G on the back, and you can get shirts, and there's a whole range of stuff available with these. But you like the stripe here with sort of stylized into a Z logo. I love it. It's awesome stuff. So check that out. All right, thanks guys. All right, that's another one mostly down. I've still got a few more things to do to get this in a state where the engineer is going to be happy, so that will be at another stage. But I'm chipping away at it. Hopefully it will be on the road soon. It's like they always say, the last 10% takes 90% of the time. Yeah, so...
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we don't have any accidents, like knocking over anything, dropping anything, breaking anything. putting your foot through anything.
I wouldn't do something like that, or maybe I would.
Anyway, we have some new merch, a cool new cup, and notice I have carefully colour-coordinated my top with the cup with the car and the hoist.
Yeah, merch in the description. There's shirts and everything as well, like I said. Follow us, Facebook, Instagram, like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Join us on Patreon to see the videos a day early. And
yeah, and if you want to drink your coffee out of the same cup as Jeff.
sounds good. All right, guys. See you on the next one.